Today's gospel reading takes us into the Gospel of John. We are still in the Easter season, but we are traveling back to before the crucifixion, before the Last Supper, to the time where Jesus is instructing the disciples of what is to come. It is Good Shepherd Sunday. So we end up in that discourse in the 10th chapter of John. John chapter 10, verse 11 through 18. And Jesus Christ says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down their life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd, does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep. She sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I will lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them on also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I always wonder sometimes if my analogies get dated as time goes on. Are people still familiar with the Harry Potter books, right? I mean, kind of at least. Do you remember the tents that are in the Harry Potter books? I think it shows up like in book 4, maybe the first time, where you go inside the tent, and from the outside it looks like a normal tent, and then you go inside, and it's huge. It's huge. It has all these floors and these rooms. Any Doctor Who fans? You know the TARDIS, it looks like this police box that's on the outside, or this phone booth for us Americans. If we even know what those look like anymore. But it's much bigger on the inside. You know, sometimes you might get in a vehicle and you'll be like, wow, this thing's really roomy. And you're surprised by what it looks like on the outside, but once you're inside, there's so much more. And I was drawn to that thought as I thought about the Good Shepherd. Because when we think, I think about the flock, or those that have been saved, or those that have been called by God, or even the love of God, I don't think that we can even begin to grasp how great it is, how amazing it is, that it's bigger than we could ever imagine. We have this Good Shepherd reading, one that we know well and right. It's the popular picturing of Jesus, the shepherd, the one who cares for the flock, the one that will do anything for the sheep. As I read this and I thought about it, and it was verse 16 that really, really reached out to me. I want to read it real quick, just one more time. There in Luke chapter 10, and I, of course, moved my bookmark from my Bible. So it says there in John chapter 10, verse 16. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them in also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock and one shepherd. One flock, one shepherd. I go and I reach out to those that belong, or at least maybe that you think belong somewhere else. There's some power in that verse. It's a deeper understanding of life and grace and God's love that comes out of that verse. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. As we live in a world that's more and more divided every week, every day, every time we turn on the TV, every time we flip through our social media, every time we answer an email or watch a commercial, or sometimes we turn on the radio or talk to somebody, do we realize that there's other sheep out there? Other sheep that may not look like us, or talk like us, or believe like us, or vote like us? And that they belong to this fold? And even more importantly, that they're listening to the voice of the shepherd that calls out. Take that in for a moment. They hear the voice and they answer. What does that mean for our lives, for our faith, for our church? What does it mean that there's people on the outside? And what must it be like for those that hear the call and feel like they're not welcome into the flock? They're outside of that current flock, the one that has the protection and security that so many experience. Because when you're outside, that's where the danger is. That's where the wolves are. That's where the hired hand may be working and will easily run off at the first time there's a bit of struggle or controversy or worry or questions that we don't want to deal with. And they're left outside. And sometimes it seems like there's something that keeps them from joining the rest of the flock. The flock they're called to, that one flock with the one shepherd. And as we thank God for the shepherd's call in our life, for the life that has been laid down to us, what does it mean that there's other sheep outside the fold? I mean, we can look at this historically and see this is the call of Acts. This is the ministry of Paul out to the Gentiles, out to all those who were not part of the know to begin with. Yeah. It also means that this here is not all that there is. It's not all that's good. It's not all that's right. But there's so much more. It means that maybe it's time to start asking those tough questions. As in, why are not all the sheep receiving the same protection, receiving the same welcome and security, especially if we hear the same call? Who put up the fence that said, we're in and you're out? The church does that a lot and has done that time and time again. It's not anything new. I think we always like to think that this generation is so much worse than, the one before. But, if you look back, every generation has pretty much thought that, this one that's coming into power was the worst one ever. We've always thought, maybe you need to be a big, strong man to be up here and preach the word. I've heard much better sermons than the one you're going to get today come from the mouths of women. There have been times that the church has said, no, you need to fall into what we consider the normal society of who you love and who you can be married to be a part. When love is greater than anything we can really understand. There are times when we said, you need to have this background and this understanding to be here. When the voice of God falls upon you every year, for all people. It's nice to be safe and secure. And I think sometimes the sheep that are on the inside are kind of worried about the ones out there. What are they going to bring in? What kind of bugs might they have with them? What kind of struggle might they cause? Or will we lose safety and security if there's more here? If we love more, if we care more, if we welcome more. But there's one shepherd, one flock. And this is the good shepherd, the one that will lay down his life for us. There's a lot of hired hands working in churches. And when we hit those times where we can no longer ask questions or explore our faith, the hired hands get worried and tend to run and tend to say, well, maybe you shouldn't be asking that and just stay here because this is fine. But that's not what it's supposed to be. Why settle with a hired hand when the shepherd's there calling? Maybe there's times that we don't know even what side of the fence we're on. The verse that comes before our reading, Christ says this, I have come so that they may have life to the fullest, the life abundant. That's the Easter message. The shepherd's call on your life, on my life, it's not one of division and turning away, but it's one of abundance. On Easter Sunday and still today, we proclaim Jesus Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. And that's not the end of the story, but just the beginning. Because Christ, the Good Shepherd, tells us once again that the work of Christ, the work of God, is not done. Not even close. There's a lot of sense of pride to think that you're the culmination of all creation when you're just a part of it. And it's good, and it's right to be a part of it. The shepherd's still calling the flock, even into a world that seems more divided every day. Into the world, the shepherd sends the call. For over 2,000 years, God is at work right here and right now. God is at work. Do you believe that? Do you realize that God has good things to do? Do you realize that God expects and needs and wants you to do those good things? The shepherd calls you so that you can work, so that you can be a part of all of this. God has chosen you, has called you to bring in the sheep, to make sure that the way is clear through your love, through your words, through your work as the children of God. Your prayers, your invitations, your calls to those outside of these walls grows the fold. We'll work together about making sure there's no stumbling blocks or barriers that are keeping God's people out. And that doesn't mean that we just ignore the existence of barriers. We live in a diverse and amazing world. We live in a world where it's almost scary to use that word, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's almost like it's scary. The flock is supposed to be DEI, just so we know. The call to Jesus is that. It's those sheep in the fold and outside the fold. That's diversity and equity and inclusion. So as we hear those buzzwords on our news or in our world that try to keep us apart, look at what they mean and understand that the shepherd calls. Shepherd calls us where we are, as we are, from different places with different experiences. We're called to welcome. For those that are included into this fold is greater and bigger than anything we can ever imagine. We live in a world of limits. Jesus does not. Love does not. What we know is that God is not done. So we are not done. We worship a resurrected Lord, one that is still present in this world, and the Good Shepherd is still calling the flock. Our part in all of this is to welcome and testify the love of God that has been laid down for us. Share this call. For this is the call of love and the life abundant. Because Jesus Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Amen.